Hey y'all, my name is Christian. I'm a millennial, and this is the Millennial Mind. Millennials get a bad rap for being lazy, non productive members of society. We also get told that our opinions are warped and don't matter. This podcast is designed to express a point of view on the world as a whole, but from a millennial's perspective. I will talk about love, current events, pretty much everything that comes to mind. Come join me on this journey on speaking my mind, and I would love for you to speak your mind as well. This podcast is sponsored by Anchor. Anchor is the easiest way to make a podcast. It gives you everything you need in one place for free, which you can use right from your phone or computer. Creation tools allow you to record and edit your podcast so it sounds great. They'll distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard everywhere, even on platforms such as Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and many more. You can easily make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. Download the Anchor app today or go to anchor.fm to get started. Once again, you can download the Anchor app, that's ANCHOR, or go to anchor.fm to get started. Hey y'all. Welcome to another episode of The Millennial Mind. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey of speaking my mind, and I hope that all of you are speaking your mind as well. So we are in March. Our Black History series has concluded, so I want to get back to some things that I've been finding on social media or just in life in general. So I was scrolling through Instagram and I read this quote from Relationship Rules, which, if you're not familiar with them, they are a group that posts relationship advice or things about relationships on Facebook, Instagram. They're pretty much everywhere. So I'm going to read this quote that they put on Instagram. I believe it was last month. And they said that the biggest rule in a relationship is no matter how mad you are at your partner, you do not go and seek someone else's attention. You sit there and make it right because that's your person. If you can easily go to someone else, you do not love the person you are with. And I'm like, woo, okay. So I decided that I wanted to dissect this and get your thoughts as well on this quote. And then I'll give you my thoughts, of course, right now. So the first thing I wanted to start out with is, why do we even get mad at our partners? It could be serious stuff like they cheated, or, they said something that was inappropriate, like verbal abuse. Or it could be something simple like, maybe they don't put a dish in the sink after you wash dishes. Or let me rephrase that. They put a dirty sink in a dirty sink. I am like messing up right now. So maybe they put a dirty dish in the sink after you wash dishes. Maybe they said something that got you heated. Maybe their personality makes you mad. Maybe they don't care to you emotionally. There are a lot of things that will cause you to get mad at your partner. Even sometimes it could be even them being in the same room as you. because maybe you're annoyed, maybe you had a long day, maybe you want to be by yourself and they're just there. It just is, it happens. You know, there's always going to be a time when you're mad at your partner about something, whether it's major or minute. So when we get mad at our partner, why do we then go and seek others' attention? Now, I can guess the rationale behind it for men, but I have a good idea about the rationale for women because, of course, I am a woman. But any man who's listening to this episode, let me know your thoughts as to why men go to seek other women's attention. The only thing that I can guess is that the quest for someone else's attention for a man seems to be more instant. It seems like they do it for ego and they're more into the physical aspect. Not saying that they're not emotional too, but for the most part, it seems like, they're trying to get something out of the deal, which is mostly sex. They want to know that they still got it. And, maybe their girl caused them to seek someone else's attention. Maybe the girl has let themselves go. Maybe they're just not, maybe the girl is not catering to him sexually. It could be a lot of things. So that's what I could guess for a man. Men, let me know your thoughts on that. Alternatively, a woman, her quest for someone else's attention is more calculated. It seems like women who endure a lot of emotional pain and suffering may start off confiding in someone else to get that emotional need met. So yes, for the most part, women, their quest for someone else's attention is more gradual. It's not something that happens instantly like with a man. You know, we may get into an argument with our partner and, we may not say anything for a while, but then maybe we have a conversation with a coworker who is of the opposite sex, who seems to be open to us discussing things with him, like, for example, our relationship and the flaws therein. So we start to get comfortable speaking with that person, and just that connection just increases and increases and increases. But then, what causes women and men in pretty stable relationships to confide in another person? So I can see maybe if you're in, a horrible relationship, maybe that's the reason why you would confide in someone else about, what's going on. But if you're in a pretty good relationship, why the switch? Why the switch to someone else in order to fulfill your needs? A few things that I could think of, perhaps lack of trust. Trust is a huge item in relationships that I've noticed that a lot of relationships do not have. Trust is so hard to obtain, but then so easy to break. Like, trust is the foundation of a relationship. Everything that you do is in your relationship is built on that foundation of trust. If you don't have that, you have no relationship. So if you don't have trust in your relationship and you're longing for that, maybe that's something that you're trying to get from someone else. That's a possibility. And usually when we're in a relationship and, maybe our partner is giving us 80%, but there's 20% that's lacking, we usually try to find someone who is, picking up that 20%, even though, they may not have the 80 that our partner has, but that's a whole different story. But one thing that I could think of was lack of trust. Another reason is Maybe they feel like they can't talk to their partner or their partner doesn't listen. This is huge. So, along with the foundation of trust for a relationship, communication is a huge foundation as well. It coincides with trust. If you can't communicate with your partner, how are you moving forward with your relationship at all? How are you growing as a couple? How are you moving forward as a couple if you can't even effectively communicate? And this just doesn't go with, you talking about good things. This also comes into play when you get into arguments. So if you're getting into arguments with your partner, there should be a way or a strategy that you use in order to argue healthily. And I'll get into that in a minute down the line. Another reason that women and men in pretty stable relationships confide in another person is that they expect their partner to know when something is bothering them without effectively communicating. And when they don't, they find someone else who does. So that kind of goes into what I was saying earlier, where they feel like they can't talk to their partner. So communication is, like I was saying, is huge. You have to learn how to effectively communicate and bring your point across without being demeaning, without being nagging, without being argumentative. And it is hard. It is super hard. I mean, I struggle with this on a daily when it comes to my husband. So, and I'll get into, ways to effectively communicate, a little bit later. Another reason that I could think of why people in stable relationships confide in other people is maybe they didn't set boundaries with themselves and people outside of their relationships. Like when you're in a relationship, you have to protect the sanctity of your relationship, meaning you have to set boundaries, meaning, everybody, you shouldn't allow everybody, whether that's parents, whether that's siblings, whether that's friends, to have an opinion on your relationship. Actually, they shouldn't be privy to the items that are going on in your relationship. They shouldn't be privy to the inner linings of your relationship. And that's something that I had to learn as well. I had to learn that in order for me to try to get my relationship to work with my husband, I couldn't tell, my parents every time that me and my husband got into an argument. I couldn't tell my friends every time me and my husband got into an argument. I couldn't tell my coworkers or my boss every time I got into an argument with my husband. Because you know why? Everybody would have an opinion. And then if me and Landon being my husband, if me and my husband would make up, they're still looking at him kind of cross-eyed based off our conversation a couple weeks ago about how we got into this major argument. And it just spirals out of control from there. So what I had to do was set boundaries. So I made a conscious decision on my own that if me and my husband would get into an argument, I would, have to figure out a way how to resolve it on my own. I would not talk to my parents about it. I would not talk to, anybody about it. I would just find a way to resolve it on my own. And of course, I would vent. So if anything, I would talk to my therapist about it. I would talk to my therapist about it or like journal about it because of course you need a place to vent. And I'm not saying that every time I would get this right. You know, there will be times where I would vent to my parents or vent to my friends or whatever. But I try not to make that a habit. So you have to set your boundaries. If you don't set your boundaries, you know, any plague, any disease could come in and literally destroy your relationship. So going back to this quote that I was saying earlier from Relationship Rules, I see where they're coming from, and that all issues dealing with your partner need to be dealt with your partner. You shouldn't be going to your friend about issues with your partner instead of your own partner. But just because, you know, I confide in my parents to vent, so for example, just because I confide in my parents to vent about my husband, does that mean that I don't love my husband? Of course not. Of course not. So if I confide in, you know, a parent or a friend pertaining to something that may have happened with my husband, does that one time, you know, just set the standard that I don't love my husband because I talked to my parent first or friend first over my husband? Absolutely not. I think that's extreme. But I think that does go back to setting boundaries. You have to set boundaries in your relationship. Now, in my case, my parents and my friends and my family in general, family and friends, they love my husband. So if I would tell them about something that I did, they'd be like, okay, well, and let me change that. So if I told them something that he did, not that I did, if I tell them something that he did, they'd be like, okay, well, what did you do? That's how much they're on my husband's side. I'm like, but I'm your child. I'm your friend. I'm your sister. I'm your niece. I'm your cousin. Like, why are you taking his side right now? But for the most part, they will tell me when I'm wrong. So I'm in a different situation. But in general, if you feel like for the most part you can't confide in your partner for anything, so you know, every now and then if you confide in someone else, I think that's okay. But if you generally feel like you can't confide in your partner, then you may want to reevaluate your relationship. Like, why do you feel that way? Do you feel like you get shut down in communicating with him or her? Do you feel like they won't listen? Do they feel like, or do you feel like they won't change? You know, do a self-assessment to see why you feel you can't confide in your partner. Also, reevaluate your own role in the relationship. How are you communicating with your partner? Now, this is kind of what we were touching on earlier. Do you use statements such as you're lazy, you never clean the house, you never cut the grass, I always do everything on my own? So are you more demeaning in your communication? These kind of statements will always tear someone down to the point that they check out of the conversation. Maybe revamp what you're saying to say the following: babe, you know, sometimes I feel like when you do not clean the house or cut the grass, you don't care about our home. I want to make the house a home, but I need your help to do it. So this way you're not exactly putting the blame on him. You're just saying that, okay, your actions makes me feel a certain kind of way, and I'm trying to come to this goal of, you know, making this a suitable home for the both of us. I need your help to do it. And I believe, you know, that kind of switch in communication, instead of saying what your partner is or is not, will kind of help produce healthy conversation about, you know, what you don't like in your partner or something that you would like to change. So yes, switching the blame from them and focusing on your feelings may help in shifting the conversation to producing results. Try it and let me know how it goes. let me know how it goes. You can email me. Email me your results at mindofmillennials@gmail.com because I want to know. But what do you think about this quote? I, I kind of saw what they were going, but it, kind of raised a little bit of concern for me because it seemed pretty extreme. But what do you think about it? Make sure to email me at mindofmillennials@gmail.com. You can also leave a comment on our Facebook page, The Millennial Mind. Make sure to catch previous episodes of the podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Anchor, and Pocket Casts. And then before I leave you guys today, I always have a quote for you. And it is as follows: communication is the fuel that keeps the fire of your relationship burning. Without it, your relationship goes cold. Okay, that's all I have for you guys today. Thank you so much for listening. And until next week, I will see you soon.